They've braved the weather, they're wearing orange, and they've stopped the traffic. Extinction Rebellion have arrived in Liverpool.
Extinction Rebellion! Extinction! Let's get this road blockage.
This weekend, Extinction Rebellion occupied the Man Island Road by the Strand in Liverpool. They demanded the government takes immediate action over what scientists, doctors and the UN are calling a climate emergency. We asked them to explain what's going on and why people had blockaded the road.
There's an awful lot of apathy about the environment and the climate crisis. The government don't really seem to be doing a lot about it, which means that it has to be taken into the hands of the people. We have to do this because otherwise we won't continue to survive. It is a crisis, it's an emergency, and it needs to be dealt with now. The government has a lot to answer for. I think they really, really need to step up and admit that this is a problem. I think the environment gets pushed aside a lot as we can deal with that another time, but it's no, the time that we need to deal with it is now. And if we don't deal with it now, then there will be nothing left to deal with.
We need to act now, for humanity, for animals, for the world that we live in. There is no planet B, there's one planet and this is it, and we need to take care of it.
Although Extinction Rebellion had blocked the road, they also had stalls laden with free food and tea. Artists sang, poets read aloud, words of unity and social change.
A native of the earth.
Because most people really are worried about the climate crisis. There's so many people that I speak to who aren't necessarily active in an environmental movement are really worried about it.
Their spirits were high and contagious, but their message couldn't be more serious.
To solve this problem, there needs to be unprecedented societal change. And I think it's a really scary thing to try and comprehend that we can't continue to live the way that we live.
I think it's patently obvious that we cannot take the very fundamental changes that we need to make without regulation, without our governments playing a leading role.
When I was younger, people of my generation, the fear we had was nuclear weapons. That threat is still around. But that same fear is now gripping the young generation of today. And it's up to all of us, including my generation, which is partly responsible by doing nothing about the climate. It's up to our generation to come along and join in with the younger people and do something about it and make our government bring in policies which will make real change to the carbon emissions that come out of this country.
With climate change awareness growing around the world, I asked what's leading the shift in the public's conscience.
Something feels like it's really shifted the last couple of years, and I think partly that'll be, I don't know about anyone else, but it feels like the weather has been really weird the last few years, and I think people are finally kind of going, oh, this is real and it's happening now, and it's happening where I live, not just in some faraway place that I can't see.
The world is changing, and it's changing rapidly. You could put it on a trite level, which is we're now noticing every summer it's getting hotter, it's getting a lot wetter. Now, why is that?
So I'm not a scientist, but my understanding of the science is that it's pretty catastrophic. The IPCC report, the big UN report that came out in 2018, said that we had probably 12 years to make really drastic cuts in our emissions. And if we don't manage to do that, then there's a serious possibility that it's quite likely that we wouldn't be able to stop runaway climate change. Even if in 20 years we got our emissions down to zero, actually so many of those tipping points would have been reached that too much ice would have been lost in the Arctic, too many weather systems would have been changing, too many glaciers lost. That means that it just gets hotter and hotter anyway, which means food insecurity, war shortages, mass migration, probably warfare over water and food resources, and doesn't really bear thinking about. And I don't feel like I can sit by and let that happen without at least coming and sitting in the road.
As the rain subsided, more people joined the roadblock and got involved with the protest. I asked one of the rebels how he thought the day had gone.
It's been an excellent day. Had the great communications with the police. The roadblock went great. We've got people who have signed up from XR that have never even really heard of us before. So we've got loads of new members, and the general public as well have got involved. They've been really supportive. We've had no negative comments from the general public. It's all been great, positive stuff. So it's been really good.
To finish the day of action, rebels led a funeral procession and invited the growing crowd to take part in a die-in, representing the threat of extinction climate change presents to us all.
We are protesting to persuade the government to take emergency action on the climate and ecological crisis. We will experience an unprecedented level of disruption within our lifetimes. We face floods, wildlife fires, extreme weather, crop failures, mass migration, and the breakdown of society. The time for denial is over. It is time to act.
As protests take place throughout the UK, Extinction Rebellion say these demonstrations will continue until the government takes real action on the growing climate emergency. This is Merlin Norbury in Liverpool for the Canary.